connection with the story that motivated us to tackle the problem that I'm presenting today. So when I joined my research group, they were interested in solving the image segmentation problem. So what I mean by that, they were interested in coming up with the actual and accurate boundaries of objects in images. And this question is a really important one because it's a really interesting question to a lot of different communities. For example, computer vision community uses huge data sets and labeled data in order to train classifiers which can classify objects and help search engines to mine images. Or large data set is really needed in that field because they want to be able to evaluate current and new image segmentation methods. Also, computer-human interaction is another interested community. For example, Hara et al. Came up with a methodology which was pairing crowd drawings with Google Street images, and they were asking people to detect whether roads are accessible for people who are using wheelchairs or not. Another interested community is the medical and biomedical one, and for that they want to be able, for example, to take out the tumors and understand what is the size of the tumor. The way that people were doing this problem, usually in my department, grad students were sitting and they were collecting the boundary of objects. But when I joined, I started learning about this tool Label Me, in which you can put points on the boundary of objects, and then the tool is able to connect those points through lines. So when you do that, at the end of your drawing, you reach to the initial point from which you started your drawing, you click on that, and then you can write down the name of the object, in this case, the elephant. So I wanted to crowdsource this problem to see whether crowd workers can be any help here. So the question here was, are the crowd drawings good or not? So we went to the literature to see what literature has to offer for evaluating the crowd drawings. And we came up with 3 big categories. So one of them was number of user clicks, and the other one, time per task. And I will talk about them in these 2 images. So as you can see, there is a photo of camera, the same camera on the left and right. The person on the left used more number of points and intuitively more time per drawing. And because of that, the person was able to get the actual boundary of the camera. However, on the right, the person has used less number of points, and that person has lost a lot of details in the drawing. So a lot of literature was talking about these 2 factors, and they were saying that we came up with meaningful conclusions about the output quality through learning these 2 behavioral features. Another method to evaluate crowd drawings was presented in a couple of projects, which was coming from comparing the crowd drawings with expert drawings. So they were asking domain experts to come up with accurate boundaries, and they were collecting drawings from people, and then they had their evaluation method which could compare these 2 and came up with a score. What was my question? So we really wanted to see whether the hypothesis of current work, which is saying that there is a correlation between behavioral features like time per point and number of user clicks and the accuracy of human drawing, is really holding or not. So we wanted to validate that and kind of like get to know the image content better and how image content relates to workers' performance and workers' behavior. So as suggested in literature, we use the same behavioral features, time per task, and number of user clicks. And at the end of our studies, we came up with this surprise finding that there is a difference in behavior of workers when they deal with different types of contents. For example, when they deal with everyday content, their behavior might be totally different than when they deal with biomedical and medical content, which is less familiar to them. So with that, I will start talking about our experimental setup, and then I will talk about what we have observed and why we think we observed that. So first of all, who is our crowd? So we recruited people through Amazon Mechanical Turk, which is a really well-known crowdsourcing platform. We put some qualifications for people or workers who we were recruiting, 100 previous tasks and 92 approval rate from previous requesters. Also, we put 2 cents per drawing for people, and also we allotted 10 minutes for each single drawing of an object inside an image. What was our data collection phase? We were dealing with 2 different types of contents. On the left, you will see a couple of samples from our biomedical and medical set, which were unfamiliar objects related to muscle cells or cross-sections of hard aorta. We had 305 images and we collected 5 drawings from 5 people, so we came up with 1525 crowdsourced drawings. And on the right, you will see our everyday or familiar data set, which was about birds, buildings, car, dog, cat. And we had 100 images from that, and we came up with 5 drawing per image, so we ended up having 500 crowdsourced image segmentation from familiar images. How did we compare and evaluate those drawings? So overall, we had 2,025 image drawings, and for each single of them, we had the gold standard, which was coming from domain experts. So, for example, as you imagine, if B is the gold standard and if A is the crowd drawing, we used a similarity measure, which is the division of intersection over union, which is saying that as A and B are more different, the Jacker score is closer to 1, and as they get closer and closer and more identical, the Jacker score leads to 1. So of course the perfect case is they're exactly the same, so the Jacker score is 1. How we did our experiment, we took all these drawings that we had. For example, right now I'm talking about familiar data. We had 5 different crowdsourced drawings. We had, for example, information about time and score at this space. And we sorted all the familiar drawings based on the time from lowest to highest. And using that, after sorting them, we used 4 different indicators: 25th percentile, median, 75th percentile, and 100th percentile, in order to divide those data into 4 different groups. So now we have 4 different groups based on time: red, green, purple, and blue, and we took the average of similarity score in each of these 4 groups. So right now, this is our first study. We wanted to see whether there is a correlation between time per task and accuracy of crowd drawing. On the left, you will see the results for biomedical images. On the right, you see the result for everyday images. These 4 colors is associated with those 4 groups that I explained in the previous slide. And as you can see here, there is a complete opposite manner or behavior that you see in biomedical images and everyday images. So pattern is quite opposite. What do I mean by that? For biomedical images, for example, for blue, as people spend more time on the task, the accuracy and the output quality is getting less. However, for everyday images, as people spend more time, the accuracy is getting better. We were so surprised that these 2 patterns were opposite, so we felt like, all right, we have to visually inspect the data to feel what's happening. So here you see some visual inspections that we chose for you. So the second row, first of all, the number of user clicks is kind of like fixed here. In all the drawings, 17 user clicks has been used, but the time is totally different. So as you move from left to right, the time is increasing. For everyday images, which are in the second row, the score is getting better. However, for biomedical images, the score is getting worse. And why is that? We hypothesized that as people spend more time on familiar or everyday images, they really want to do a more accurate job. However, for biomedical images, they were so confused what is the actual cell and what is the actual content that they have to take out, and they spend a lot of time thinking what is the actual object, and although they put a lot of time, they didn't get a good score. So there is a difference here between being careful, like what they were doing for everyday images, and being confused, like how they were when they were dealing with unfamiliar data. So in our next study, we wanted to basically verify if there is a correlation between number of user clicks and accuracy. So because of that, we used the exact same 4 groups. This time we divided the chunks based on the number of user clicks. And again, for everyday images, we came up with the conclusion that for sure, more number of user clicks lead to better result. However, for biomedical images, for example, for this blue group, which has the highest number of user clicks, the accuracy is really low. So again, we wanted to visually inspect how we hypothesize this finding. So we went through the data, and we understand that for cell images or biomedical images that we had, some of the shapes were so complicated and complex. So because of that, people used a lot of number of clicks. However, they still couldn't get the actual boundary, and the score is really low. For everyday images, however, people have a really clear view of what is the actual object because they're familiar with it. And because of that, as they spend more number of clicks, they were getting better score. So in order to wrap up, we wanted to study the problem that whether there is a correlation between task content and user behavior. And we tested it on 2 different data sets, biomedical or unfamiliar, everyday or familiar. And we came up with this conclusion that we will observe different crowd behavior when they're dealing with different types of contents. So where I want to take this, right now, when we want to come up with accurate image segmentation result, I post each image 5 times to Mechanical Turk, and I collect 5 different drawings, and then I use an aggregation method to come up with one single result from these 5 results. So if we can kind of like learn about how people behave when they're dealing with different content, and if we can say that there is a correlation between behavior and output quality, then by just observing the crowd behavior, we can infer the output quality. So we will get rid of the redundancy in the data, and we can just say that, all right, for the images that my machine learning model is saying that's a good performance, I don't need any redundant data. However, for some other cases that my machine learning model is saying the score is low, then I probably can add another layer and bring redundancy into the play. With that as my future work, I want to thank NSF for supporting your research, and this is my contact info in case you're interested in learning more about our research. Thanks so much.